What's up, Infected, and welcome to the quarantine. This is my number 5 through number 1 in my 2017 top 10 list. If you haven't seen them already, I'll have a link to them right here to take you to my top 3 honorable mention, and then my number 10 through number 6. All of them I highly recommend, but make sure you check those out as well. So let's just go right into the list, shall we? All right, number 5 was a Kickstarter game that actually got fulfilled, I think, in 2016. And I really wanted this game. I'm a sucker for metal coins, which is why Zaya is in my my honorable mentions. And I really wanted the metal coins. I really wanted the pieces, the special pieces that came with the collector's edition. I contacted the publisher, and I didn't have the money during the Kickstarter, and I wound up having the money like 4 months before the game was out, I guess, 4 or 5 months. So I contacted the developer and was like, what can I do to get a copy of this? And he goes, well, first come, first serve. You'll have to, if there's any left over the collector's edition, then maybe you can get one if you're fast enough. So I found somebody on Board Game Geek selling Scythe for $50 more, the collector's edition, than the MSRP would be. So I went ahead and bought it anyways for $50 more to ensure I got a copy. Luckily I did, because apparently you couldn't get one. Like, they were sold out almost immediately. And the thing I love so much about Scythe is when you first look at Scythe, the artwork in it is stunning. There's only one game on my list that has better artwork than it. And the artwork's stunning. It doesn't force too much of a story down your throat. It gives you artwork and like some options a lot of the time, and you kind of make your own story. And you look at it and you get these giant mechs and protecting your farmers and stuff like this, and it kind of looks like a war game. But it's not. It's actually like a resource management Cold War game. It's more about the threat of potentially being attacked than it is actually attacking, because as it should be, combat in this game is incredibly costly. It's very resource heavy, and it's very time consuming. And then, you spend all these resources, and now you're at a disadvantage because you've just pissed me off, and then now I come back with a gale force winds and just wreck everything. So I love how they do that. It's got a really good mix of, the way the combat works in it. And then you tack that onto the fact that all the resources you get, saved for money, stay on the board, which gives you incentive to attack. Because if I really need metal, and you have a stack of metal right there, so I can go and invade you and steal that metal, but then again, that metal stays on the board. So you could take it back, and I don't get to use it until it comes back around to me. And it's such a beautifully designed game. It works so well. It recently got 2 expansions that just add to the game and make it better. And I absolutely love this game. So that is my number 5, Scythe. My number 4 is a light war game, or an area control war game. And a lot of people's probably the first thing anybody thinks of is probably Risk when they think of like a light war game, area control. And this one shares a lot of similarities with Risk, but it does it in such a better manner, and it's not nearly as long as Risk. So the biggest problem with Risk, not biggest problem, but one problem with Risk is, God, that game could take forever to play. I've played games of Risk that take days. This one takes about 2 to 3 hours to play, maybe 4 or 5 if you're playing with maximum combat, but it doesn't take super long. It doesn't take days to play like Risk, and it also doesn't include dice. And that game is Shogun. I love Shogun. When you lay a Shogun out, just first and foremost, the game is beautiful. A lot of people complain that, the bland color palette, and yada, yada, yada. Personally, I love the look of Scythe. I think it looks very thematic. You have a battle map, and you're the different houses in Japan, and you're fighting over the shogunate. And it's such a well-designed game. You have these cards, and every province in the game has a card related to it. So when you take a province, you're going to take that card. So now I want that province to maybe recruit, and then I want to attack out of this. So you're going to lay these cards down on the board, and then you're going to execute them in a specific order. When that order changes every round, and you only know the first 5, and there's 10 total order cards. So you only know the first 5. The other 5 are face down. You don't know what they are. So okay, you see that there's combat first, but then where is food going to be at? So, okay, this territory might get attacked, but you really need it for food. So do you risk it? But then if it's taken from you, the card goes with it and you don't get to produce food, which is a big problem because the game takes place over 2 years. And at the end of the second year, you have to feed all your provinces. So going a turn without food is huge and can be devastating. Which brings me to another thing I love about this game. When you play Risk, you blow up and expand like wildfire. You can't really do that with Shogun, because with Shogun, if you blow up like a wildfire, every province that you take, you have to feed. And that's a big deal. So if you don't have enough food, you wind up having riots on your hands. You have to fight the peasants. They can revolt and burn your castles down. And so you have to go into the game thinking a little differently about it. But on top of that, if you don't spread out, that's less territories you control and that's less points. So you have to find a nice little middle ground. It's such a well-designed game. And I haven't even touched on one of my favorite parts of it. You have the cube tower is how combat's resolved. If I invade you, I just pick up all these cubes and throw them in the tower, and only some of them are going to come out, and that's what determines the victor. Whoever has more cubes than that is going to win. But on top of that, for every cube that comes out of mine, it removes one of yours from play. So we remove both of ours. If they don't come out of the tower, they stay in that tower. So it's kind of a self-balancing act. I played one game of Shogun where my opponent attacked me easily 3-1 every fight, like 4 or 5 fights throughout the year. I won every single fight somehow. But every cube that doesn't come out stays in the tower. So later on in the game, when I was attacking him, he had a lot of cubes in the tower, meaning I could not break his defenses, because if his cubes fall out, it counts for his side. And it's such a brilliantly crafted game. And there's something very satisfying and tactile picking up all these cubes and throwing them in and just hoping. And then you watch out and the look of dread on somebody's face that's losing, and they like, how? I had 5-1 numbers. I hadn't played it for a while, but I recently got to get it to the table a couple more times, and I just reaffirmed how much I love this game. All right, my number 3. We're getting into my golden games, essentially. My number 3 is a game that I feel would probably be probably my number 1. It's a campaign-style game, and that's my biggest problem with the game, because it's so hard to bring to the table. I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one. It is Kingdom Death Monster, and I love this game. It would be my number 1 game, hands down, if it wasn't so hard to bring to the table. You have a giant box that's this big. It weighs probably, if you have all the expansions and just the game components, not even the minis in the box, it probably weighs 25-30 pounds. And then on top of that, if us 4 are playing, us 4 have to keep playing through that scenario. You can kind of have drop in, drop out, but then anybody who's dropping in, dropping out isn't really attached to the settlement, and so they're not going to give a shit that much if it falls. They're just playing to play. But the best way to play it is with us 4 playing through all 25 lantern years until the settlement fails. And if one person doesn't show up, you don't really want to play without them, because something huge could happen that game. You don't know. Even if you played the game 5 or 6 times, an event might come up that just is so devastating, or maybe changes something huge, or gives you a Twilight Sword, and now suddenly you feel like a god. And I love the game. The game builds this narrative that I've never seen. It does it all by itself, and I've never seen something like that in a game, where the narrative just seems to string together so well. And not even like the story segments, just the way certain events unfold and whole 9 yards. I love the game. The artwork's stunning. It is the best artwork in a board game I've seen. I would love to see like comics and stuff written in this world, and I love it. Kingdom Death Monster is a phenomenal game, but it is excruciatingly difficult. It's unfair. It punishes you for the smallest mistake, but it rewards you for repeating play. You play it again and you use the information you got from the beginning, and its brutal unfairness is actually part of its charm, in my opinion. Is the game rewards you if you beat this unfair opponent. The first thing you fight is like a 12-foot tall lion that just can tear you apart in a single attack. But if you win, that feeling of accomplishment that you get is so satisfying. I've probably played through, I don't know, 6 campaigns so far. All of them have failed. We haven't even made it to like Lantern Year 18 yet. But every game, even the smallest victory, feels so satisfying. It doesn't matter how geared up you are, you can still be torn apart by the weakest monster in the game because it is dice-based, which is probably the biggest flaw of the game. But the good things in the game just way outweigh the few flaws that the game has. The game is phenomenal. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say is, oh, it's the Kickstarter effect, blah, 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 blah. You put all this money into the Kickstarter, and of course you're going to like it. Wrong. I actually did not kickstart it. A friend of mine kickstarted it, and he brought it over, and we played, I think, 3 or 4 Lantern Years, and I loved the game. I loved it so much. Luckily, Adam Poots was still running a special on his website. This was before it was readily available for everybody. That for $100 less, because the game retails for $400, which in my opinion, totally worth it. For $100 less, so it's $300, and you can get the base game. I went ahead and I bought it full MSRP. I bought every expansion full MSRP as it came out. And so I did not kickstart this. I played it and loved it, and then bought the game. The game is phenomenal. However, I wish he would come out with probably, because I think everybody needs to experience this game, and it would be nice to see him come out with, I don't know, like maybe a $150 version that doesn't use minis, downgrade the quality of the game a little bit. That way it's a little more accessible to people, because the game is phenomenal. I love this game. I'm going to stop talking about this game now because I think I've already drilled home just how much I like it. And again, the reason it's not number 1 or 2, it's number 3 is just because it's so hard to bring anywhere. You can't bring it to the table very often, and the game takes place 25 Lantern Years. Each Lantern Year takes like 2.5 hours to play. So that's why it's actually only number 3. All right, my number 2 is a hidden trader game. Now, anybody who's a big fan of my channel knows that my 2 favorite genres are hidden trader and deck building. And hidden trader I like actually more than deck building because I like it's a very nice blend of social deduction, like with Resistance and Secret Hitler and Coup and those kind of games. Then you have a legitimate board game on top of it. And while I like social deduction games, I can only play them a little bit here and there, and I don't like how they just kind of boil down to a social activity. And this game meets that and meshes it so well, and that game is Battlestar Galactica. Topping everything off, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I love Battlestar Galactica. And this game just does the hidden trader so well. It's such a tight little game. It's a super simple game to play. And the biggest, coolest thing about the game is when you take a game like, Dead of Winter, for example. Dead of Winter is a really cool hidden trader game. And you're playing, and then there's usually a big reveal. Ha ha, I'm the trader, I win. And Battlestar Galactica doesn't have that. Because when you reveal as a Cylon, you actually lose most of your power, because the power that a trader has in Battlestar Galactica is just the subtle little things here and there that they do, the cards that are put in when nobody knows and stuff like that. And you wind up tanking Galactica, and it's such a satisfying feeling. But what makes everything better is halfway through the game, everybody gets another loyalty card. So you could have been totally loyal the whole game. Now you're a Cylon. You've been working your chops off trying to save Galactica, and now your job is to tank all of the hard work you've been doing. And that alone adds such an amazing element to the game. But then you tack that also on top of the fact that there are positions of power. There's a couple other ones from the expansions, which I'm not going to get into, but the two main ones are the presidency, and then you have, I don't know why I'm acting like I'm holding up cards, but you have the presidency, and then you have the admiral. They all have special things that only they get to do, and they're big deal things that really affect Galactica. So that adds another level of tension to the game, because if I'm a Cylon and I'm also the admiral, I get to choose where we go when we jump, and I have access to nuclear warheads, which is a big deal. And then that on top of the fact that a lot of the time Galactica is surrounded by ships, and it's just, the game gets insane, and it's such a stressful game. It's always a super tight game, and on top of everything, the Cylons don't know who they are, who each other are either. So I know I'm a Cylon. I have no idea who my partner is. So maybe I'm trying to throw somebody under the bus, but that somebody I'm throwing under the bus is another Cylon. Or maybe I have both Cylon cards, so I'm the only Cylon, but I'm able to use that to my advantage and push blame on other people and then lock people in the brig. Or it's just, the game is so good. It's a game about acceptable losses, essentially. Every choice you make in the game is, there's downfalls to every decision that you make, and it's all, like I said, all about subtlety and just the tiny little, I'll just throw a card in, and then maybe fate screwed you over, and then now everybody knows there's a Cylon, and you're like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? And just, I love Battlestar Galactica. It is my single most favorite hidden trader game to date. Now, you could probably see behind me, I like Shadows of Camelot, I like Dead of Winter, but I feel Battlestar Galactica does something that neither of those do, and it does it so well. So my number 2, Battlestar Galactica. All right, my number 1 game, hands down, I'm not even gonna beat around bushes with this, it is Battlecon, the Battlecon series. Devastation, War, Fate, or probably the new one that's coming out that I, of course, kickstarted. Now, Battlecon, if you don't know what Battlecon is, it's, if you take like Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Dead or Alive, fighting games, and then you add an anime fighter like Guilty Gear or Persona 4 Arena, you slap that kind of veneer on it, and that is Battlecon. It is a anime fighter as a board game, and the thing about it is, there is no luck in the game at all. The game is purely getting inside your opponent's head, outthinking your opponent. If you lose a game in Battlecon, it's because your opponent was better than you. Maybe their fighter was a little more powerful than yours, maybe it was a bad matchup, but there was no luck involved. It was purely skill. I've won games against my character's counter before. It's about outthinking your opponent. I don't think I've played this with anybody who didn't love the game. I've actually played it with 2 people who bought the game like on the spot. I had one guy ordered on Amazon. He was halfway through the second game. He goes, this game's amazing. Ordered it on Amazon. I had another guy got up halfway through the game. He's like, hang on, got up, went to the next room, bought it from my local shop, sat back down, and proceeded to start unwrapping it. And I love this game. The game is phenomenal. And then on top of all of that, like a normal fighter, you play Soul Calibur a whole bunch, and you play with one character over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to get better with that character, and you're going to understand what you can do to counter this character, and what you're going to do to counter these moves, and what to do when, and it's pure strategy. That's all the game is. It's less of a fighting game and more of like a strategy game, because again, there's no luck involved. It is outthinking your opponent. If you lost, one of 2 things happened. Either you're Mikhail, well, one of 3 things. Either your opponent's Mikhail and he's just broken. I don't let people play Mikhail just because how overpowered he is. But either way, it's either your opponent was probably a hard counter for your character, or you were outplayed. Their skill level was higher than yours, but you played them more and more and more. You're going to start, okay, this is how that character plays. This is how my character plays. Maybe mine's just a bad matchup, so let me try another character. And even if it's a bad matchup, I've beaten numerous people that were the character I'm playing, it was their counter. It's just because I knew what they were going to do, did something different to counter that and put them in a bad position and then set them up. And it's just, I could talk about Battlecon all day. The game is phenomenal. It's my all-time favorite game. All right, that is my top 10 list for 2017. If you haven't seen the other videos in this list, I will have a link to them up here and down in the description as well. I highly recommend checking those out because all the games that I list in this are fantastic games. I love each and every one of them. So if you'd like to support my channel, I have a Patreon right up here. Any amount of support would definitely help, and I certainly appreciate it. If you're new here, click the subscribe button down there. Stick around for a bit. Leave a comment or a like. I make sure I read all of my comments. And I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.